Captain Marcus Blackwood stood at the viewport of the diplomatic vessel Harmony, watching as the swirling azure and emerald atmosphere of Nyloria came into view. After 6 months in cryosleep, the mission was finally beginning. His heart pounded against his ribs. Humanity's first official contact with the Nylorians would shape interstellar relations for generations. "Captain, we're receiving landing coordinates," Lieutenant Patel announced from the communication station. "The Nylorian Royal Council awaits your arrival." Marcus smoothed down his formal diplomatic uniform. At 35, he was young for an interstellar ambassador, but his background in xenolinguistics and cultural anthropology had made him the logical choice for this delicate assignment. "Commence landing sequence," he ordered, mentally reviewing the extensive briefings on Nylorian customs. Their civilization was thousands of years more advanced than Earth's, yet they'd reached out after detecting human exploration vessels at the edge of their system. The ship descended through layers of luminous clouds. Below, a city of crystalline spires and floating gardens spread across a verdant landscape. Marcus had seen the transmissions, but nothing compared to the reality of Erythea, the Nylorian capital. After a smooth landing on a platform of what appeared to be liquid metal, Marcus and his small team prepared to disembark. The ship's ramp extended downward, and he took a deep breath before stepping into the warm, sweet-scented air of Nyloria. A delegation awaited them. At its center stood a figure that immediately drew Marcus's attention, a female Nylorian with skin the color of polished jade and hair the vibrant red of a sunset, falling in elaborate braids adorned with tiny glowing crystals. Unlike the other Nylorians dressed in formal silver robes, she wore a fitted garment of deep purple that accentuated her slender yet strong physique. Most striking were her eyes, large, slightly angled, and a brilliant amber that seemed to shift in the light. "Captain Blackwood," she spoke in perfect English, her voice musical with an accent that somehow reminded him of wind through leaves. "I am Princess Talia, daughter of High Sovereign Vorin. I welcome you to Nyloria." Marcus bowed in the manner described in his briefings, right hand over heart, head inclined but eyes maintained at level. "Princess Talia, on behalf of the United Earth Government, I thank you for your welcome. We come in peace and friendship." A slight smile curved her emerald lips. "Your pronunciation is excellent, Captain. Few visitors master our formal greeting so well." He hadn't realized he'd switched to Nylorian for the traditional phrase. "Your language is fascinating. I've been studying it since we received your transmission." Talia stepped forward, closer than most humans would stand in formal situations. Marcus detected a subtle fragrance from her, reminiscent of cinnamon and something alien yet pleasant. "Then you shall have ample opportunity to practice," she said. "As the diplomatic liaison between our worlds, I will be your guide during your stay." Something flickered in her amber eyes, curiosity, perhaps, or something deeper that Marcus couldn't identify. He felt an unexpected warmth spread through his chest. "The Council awaits your initial address," she continued, gesturing toward the towering crystal palace ahead. "But first, a brief ceremony to cleanse your journey's energy. It is customary for all who enter Erythea." As they walked together toward a circular fountain emitting a gentle blue light, Marcus found himself studying Talia's profile. The diplomatic briefings hadn't prepared him for the graceful way she moved or the intelligent intensity in her gaze. "Is this your first assignment as an ambassador, Captain?" she asked. "Please, call me Marcus," he replied. "And yes, though I've participated in other diplomatic missions. Your world is remarkable. As is your journey here," Talia said. "Our astronomers tracked your vessel's approach. 6 months in suspended animation, we find the concept both fascinating and somewhat concerning." "Concerning?" "To surrender consciousness so completely," she explained. "Nylorians value continuous awareness. Our sleep is brief and filled with shared dreaming." The casual mention of such an alien concept reminded Marcus of the vast differences between their species, despite their similar humanoid appearance. Perhaps you'll teach me about your dream sharing, he said, immediately wondering if he'd overstepped. To his relief, Talia's expression brightened. I would enjoy that, Marcus. There is much our worlds can learn from each other. She paused at the fountain's edge. Beginning now, with the welcome ritual. As Marcus followed her lead, dipping his hands into the luminescent water, he couldn't shake the feeling that this mission would change him in ways no training could have predicted. Princess Talia's amber eyes met his across the shimmering fountain, and for a moment, everything else, the diplomatic pressure, the historic significance, the watching delegation, faded away. Something important had begun. Something beyond diplomacy. 3 weeks into the diplomatic mission, Marcus found himself looking forward to his daily meetings with Princess Talia more than any other aspect of his work. What had begun as formal cultural exchanges had evolved into something far more personal and engaging. Today, they walked through the Royal Botanical Sanctuary, a vast biodome housing thousands of Nilorian plant species. Overhead, a crystalline dome filtered the intense light of Niloria's twin suns, casting a kaleidoscope of colors across the verdant landscape. This carnivorous bloom is particularly fascinating, Talia explained, gesturing toward a large crimson flower that swayed subtly despite the absence of wind. It doesn't consume insects as Earth's carnivorous plants do, but rather absorbs ambient emotional energy. In our ancient times, these were planted around meditation temples to clear negative thoughts. Marcus leaned closer, careful not to touch it. So it's feeding on our emotions right now? Talia's melodic laugh sent an unexpected warmth through his chest. Indeed. I suspect it finds your human emotions quite exotic. Her amber eyes met his with an intensity that made his pulse quicken. Your species feels things so vividly. It's one of your most admirable qualities. And one of our most problematic, Marcus admitted, straightening. Our emotional nature has led to both our greatest accomplishments and our worst conflicts. They continued walking along the crystal path, their shoulders occasionally brushing. Marcus had noticed that Talia didn't observe the formal distance that other Nilorians maintained. Initially, he'd attributed it to her diplomatic training, but lately, he wondered if there was another reason. The peace treaty is progressing well, he said, changing the subject to safer ground. Your council seems particularly interested in our agricultural technology exchanges. And your Earth Council was impressed with our atmospheric purification models, Talia added. She paused beside a small pond where luminescent creatures that resembled a cross between fish and butterflies danced above the surface. But I didn't bring you here to discuss treaties, Marcus. The way she said his name, with a slight emphasis on the first syllable, made it sound like something precious. Tomorrow is the festival of celestial alignment, she continued. It happens only once every 87 Earth years when our moons form a perfect triad in the night sky. The celebration is significant in our culture. I've read about it, Marcus said, recalling the briefing. It's considered a time when new beginnings are blessed by the ancestors. Talia's expression brightened. Your studies are thorough. Yes, it's a sacred time. She hesitated, a rare display of uncertainty from the normally confident princess. I would be honored if you would attend as my personal guest, not as Earth's ambassador. The distinction wasn't lost on Marcus. I'd be delighted, he said, perhaps too quickly. Her emerald fingers brushed against his hand, a deliberate touch that sent a tingling sensation up his arm. Nilorians were typically reserved with physical contact, making the gesture all the more significant. There's something you should know about Nilorian physiology, she said, her voice dropping to a near whisper. We experience a form of resonance with certain individuals. A compatibility that transcends ordinary connection. Marcus felt his mouth go dry. Are you saying? I'm saying that since your arrival, I've felt a resonance I've never experienced before. Her amber eyes seemed to glow with inner light. It's why I requested to be your liaison, despite my father's concerns about royal protocol. The revelation left him momentarily speechless. His diplomatic training hadn't prepared him for this development. More troubling, it hadn't prepared him for how much her confession thrilled him. On Earth, we might call that chemistry, he finally managed, immediately regretting the scientific framing. To his relief, Talia smiled. A fitting term, though our understanding goes deeper. Chemistry suggests something primarily physical, while Nylorian resonance encompasses mind, spirit, and yes, body. The last word carried a subtle emphasis that made his skin warm. They reached a secluded alcove where a bench made of what appeared to be living wood curved elegantly beneath flowering vines. Talia gestured for him to sit beside her. "I've studied your Earth customs," she said as they settled on the bench. "I understand that sharing personal space like this might suggest intentions." Marcus felt his diplomatic composure slipping. "And what intentions might those be, Princess?" "To know you beyond the boundaries of our official roles." Her direct gaze held his. "Would that interest you, Captain Blackwood?" The formal title, spoken with such intimate inflection, created a delicious tension between them. Marcus knew he was treading on dangerous diplomatic ground, yet couldn't bring himself to retreat. "It would," he admitted. "More than I should probably acknowledge." In the filtered sunlight, the tiny crystals woven through Talia's red braids sparkled like stars. She was undeniably alien, her green skin, the subtle ridges along her temples, the unusually graceful way she moved, yet he found himself increasingly drawn to these differences rather than distanced by them. "Tomorrow night," she said, "the festival will begin with the procession of lights through the Crystal Canyon, followed by a royal banquet. After that..." She paused, her gaze dropping briefly to his lips before returning to his eyes. "After that, many Nylorians retreat to private celebrations with those closest to them." The implication hung in the air between them, charged and unmistakable. "I should warn you," Marcus said carefully, "that I'm not familiar with all your customs. I wouldn't want to inadvertently cause offense." Talia's smile widened, revealing teeth that were slightly sharper than human ones, a reminder of her people's evolutionary past as forest predators. "Then I shall be your guide, as I have been since your arrival." Her hand moved to rest lightly on his, her touch cool yet somehow burning. "Unless, of course, your diplomatic protocols forbid such cultural exchanges." Marcus knew he should consult with his team, should consider the potential complications of a personal relationship with the princess of an alien world. Yet sitting here, with the scent of exotic flowers surrounding them and Talia's amber eyes reflecting the dappled light, rational thought seemed increasingly distant. "Some cultural exchanges," he said, turning his hand to entwine his fingers with hers, "are worth the risk." The connection between them seemed to pulse with possibility, human and Nylorian, man and woman, diplomat and princess, boundaries that suddenly seemed arbitrary compared to the resonance Talia had described. As they sat together in the alien garden, surrounded by the gentle sounds of unfamiliar life forms, Marcus realized that his mission had forever changed. Whatever treaty eventually emerged between their worlds, his personal connection to Nyloria had become irrevocably deeper. And in the crystalline dome above them, the twin suns of Nyloria began their descent toward the horizon, heralding the approach of the festival of celestial alignment, and whatever revelations it might bring. The festival of celestial alignment transformed Erythea into a wonderland of light and music. Crystal lanterns floated through the air as Nylorians in ceremonial attire filled the streets. Marcus stood on a balcony of the palace, dressed in formal Earth diplomatic garb modified with Nylorian elements, a gesture Talia had arranged. "Captain Blackwood." The deep voice startled him. Marcus turned to find High Sovereign Vorin, Talia's father, approaching. The ruler's emerald skin was darker than his daughter's, etched with the ceremonial markings of the royal lineage. "Your sovereignty," Marcus bowed. "The festival is magnificent." "Indeed. A time when paths align, or diverge." Vorin's amber eyes, so like Talia's, studied him intently. My daughter speaks highly of you. Princess Talia has been an exceptional liaison. She has other duties requiring attention, Voron said. The alliance with Clan Zirith grows urgent. Their leader, Commander Dravik, arrives tomorrow to formalize arrangements. Arrangements? Marcus asked, though he feared he already knew. A political union, Voron confirmed. One that will secure our northern territories. Marcus felt his chest tighten. I wasn't aware the princess was engaged. Not yet formally. The announcement comes tonight. Voron's gaze was unreadable. I'm told humans form emotional attachments quickly. Remember your purpose here, Captain. Before Marcus could respond, Voron departed, leaving him with the bitter taste of realization. He'd been a fool to imagine anything could develop between them. Hours later, amid the celebration, Marcus found Talia alone in the royal gardens, her ceremonial gown shimmering like captured starlight. You've heard, she said without preamble, her back to him as she gazed at the 3 moons aligning in the night sky. Your father mentioned Commander Dravik. Talia turned, her expression fierce. A political arrangement I've resisted for years. My father believes securing our borders outweighs personal choice. And what do you believe? Marcus asked, closing the distance between them. I believe in resonance, she whispered, placing her hand over his heart. In connections that transcend political boundaries. Marcus covered her hand with his. I can't offer alliances or territories. But you offer something rarer. Talia's eyes reflected the 3 moons. Truth. The truth is, Marcus said, his diplomat's caution finally abandoning him, I've fallen in love with you, Talia. Completely, impossibly in love. I know it jeopardizes everything, but I can't stand by while you're promised to someone else. Instead of shock or dismay, Talia's face transformed with radiant joy. She stepped closer until their bodies nearly touched. Say it again, she whispered. Say the words in my language. Marcus spoke the Nylorian phrase he'd secretly learned, the sounds unfamiliar on his tongue but the emotion behind them unmistakable. My heart beats in resonance with yours. Talia's cool fingers traced his jawline. Do you know what happens when true resonance is acknowledged between Nylorians? Before he could answer, she leaned forward and pressed her lips to his, a gesture she'd learned from studying human customs. The kiss deepened, and as it did, Marcus felt a strange sensation, like a door opening in his mind. This, she whispered against his lips. This is what happens. Marcus gasped as a flood of alien sensations washed through him. Thoughts and emotions not his own, yet intimately familiar, swirled in his consciousness. Talia's presence bloomed in his mind like a flower opening to sunlight. What's happening? He managed, steadying himself against her. The telepathic bond, Talia explained, her voice now echoing both in his ears and his mind. It forms naturally between resonant Nylorians. I wasn't certain it would work with a human until this moment. Marcus stared at her in wonder. You can read my thoughts? Not precisely. I sense your emotions, your intentions. Her smile was radiant. And you can sense mine. He concentrated, feeling the foreign yet natural connection between them. Through it flowed Talia's genuine affection, her determination, and something deeper, a belief that their connection was not accidental but predestined. This is why you've been fighting the arrangement with Commander Dravik, he realized. You knew about our potential bond. I suspected from our first meeting, she confirmed. When our hands touched during the welcome ceremony, I felt the initial resonance. It's unprecedented between our species, which makes it all the more precious. Marcus pulled her closer. Your father will never accept this. My father respects the ancient ways, Talia countered. And this bond is the most ancient of all Nylorian traditions. It supersedes political arrangements. Through their new connection, Marcus sensed her uncertainty beneath her conviction. There's something you're not telling me. Talia's mental presence wavered. The bond, it's permanent, Marcus. For Nylorians, it's a lifelong connection. If we complete it, you'll be tied to me and to Nyloria forever. The implications were staggering. His mission, his career, his life on Earth, all would be transformed irrevocably. Show me, he said simply. Talia led him deeper into the gardens, to a secluded grotto where bioluminescent plants created a private sanctuary. There, beneath the aligned moons, she undid the fastenings of her ceremonial robe, revealing the intricate patterns that adorned her emerald skin. The final bonding requires complete connection, she explained, her amber eyes luminous in the dim light. Physical, mental, spiritual. Are you certain, Marcus? Once done, it cannot be undone. In answer, he pulled her into his arms, his decision made. As clothing fell away and their bodies entwined, the telepathic connection deepened. Every caress was doubled, felt by the giver and receiver simultaneously. Their minds merged as completely as their bodies, creating a feedback loop of pleasure and revelation. At the moment of their physical climax, the mental bond crystallized. Marcus experienced the world suddenly through Nylorian senses, the heightened perception of emotional energies, the subtle vibrations of living things, the ancestral memories that flowed through Talia's bloodline. Now, Talia whispered as they lay entwined, we face the council together. The council chamber fell silent as Marcus and Talia entered hand in hand. High Sovereign Voron's expression darkened when he noticed the subtle glow emanating from their skin, the visible manifestation of a completed bond. What have you done? He demanded, rising from his throne. Commander Dravik, a broad-shouldered Nylorian with battle scars crisscrossing his green skin, stepped forward menacingly. This is an outrage. The alliance was nearly secured. Father, Talia addressed Voron directly, her voice carrying the resonant tone of a bonded Nylorian, I have found my true resonance, as our ancient laws acknowledge and protect. With an alien? Dravik spat. Impossible. Marcus felt Talia's encouragement through their bond. He stepped forward, addressing the council in flawless Nylorian. Honorable Council, I stand before you transformed. The bond between Princess Talia and myself is genuine and complete. He opened his mind, allowing the telepathic members of the council to verify his claim. Several gasped at the undeniable evidence. The eldest council member, a wizened female whose skin had faded to pale sage, approached them. In all our records, no human has ever achieved resonance with a Nylorian. She circled them, studying the energetic patterns. Yet the bond is unmistakable. Perhaps the strongest I've witnessed in centuries. Voron's anger gave way to calculation. What does this mean for our territories, our alliance with Clan Zirith? It means a stronger alliance with Earth, Marcus offered. One based not on political convenience but genuine connection. Our worlds linked not just by treaties but by living bonds. Through their connection, Talia sent him images of what could be, human-Nylorian cooperation spreading beyond diplomacy into cultural exchange, scientific advancement, mutual protection. There is wisdom in this union, the elder council member declared. Ancient prophecies speak of bridges between worlds. Perhaps this is the manifestation. Dravik protested, but other council members were already seeing the potential advantages. Earth's growing influence in the galactic community made them valuable allies, more valuable, perhaps, than territorial concessions with Clan Zirith. The bond cannot be broken, Voron finally acknowledged. Therefore, we must adapt. He approached the couple, his expression softening slightly. My daughter has always seen possibilities others missed. Perhaps this time, her vision serves Nyloria well. 1 month later, beneath a pavilion that blended Earth and Nylorian architectural elements, Marcus and Talia participated in a formal union ceremony. Representatives from both worlds witnessed their public commitment, unaware of the deeper, irrevocable bond they already shared. As they sealed their union with both a human kiss and a Nylorian mind touch, Marcus reflected on the incredible journey from diplomat to consort of an alien princess. Through their bond, Talia sensed his thoughts and smiled. "Our story is just beginning," she whispered in his mind. "And it will change both our worlds forever." Marcus pulled her close, feeling their hearts beat in perfect resonance, human and Nylorian, yet somehow perfectly aligned.